I want to share an interview that Jennifer Gonzalez of the Cult of Pedagogy did with Alina Aguilar on her podcast referencing becoming a more resilient teacher. I thought her podcast was very, very insightful, and so I wanted to share it with my own audience. 12 Habits That Build Resilience. In the book, Aguilar explains how developing each of these habits contributes to resilience. She recommends focusing on a different habit each month, taking the whole month to learn about, reflect on, and develop practices that strengthen that habit. Below each habit is the month Aguilar suggests as an ideal time to focus on it. This is based on a typical American school calendar where the school year starts around August, September, and ends around May, June. If your calendar is different, you may want to make adjustments accordingly. Welcome to episode 95 of the Teacher Rockstar podcast, a place where tips and strategies critical to the new teacher are discussed. I'm your host, Steve Hiles, and in today's episode, I want to talk about how to be a more resilient teacher. And this is coming from, as I said earlier, a podcast on Jennifer Gonzalez's podcast show. And she was interviewing Alina Aguilar on becoming a more resilient teacher. So I'm going to go ahead and share that information with you. But before we do, here's a word from our sponsor. Would you like to supercharge your classroom management skills? Well, if you're a brand new teacher, a student teacher, maybe you're a teacher returning back into the classroom, the Teacher Rockstar Academy course is for you. Gain the confidence, the skills you'll need to crush it on day one and beyond. So invest in yourself and enroll now at tra.teacherclassroomresources.com. I promise you that this will be a most transformational experience for you. Okay, let's continue. Point number 1, know yourself. Suggested month is June. Taking the time to reflect on and get clear about your values, your preferences, your skills and aptitudes, and your socio-political identity can help you develop a strong sense of purpose. This makes you more likely to respond to difficult situations in ways that are consistent with that purpose. Being really anchored in your purpose, Aguilar explains, being really clear about what you want to be doing in life helps you deal with challenges and setbacks. Number 2, understand emotions. Suggested month, July. Emotions can be tremendous resources and sources of energy, Aguilar says. They key in figuring out how to have healthier relationships with them, how to understand them, name them, accept them, and then work with them. During this month, Aguilar has teachers examine the way emotions influence our thinking and vice versa, and how to work with them instead of against them. She's especially interested in how we deal with anger. There have been times when I've acted from anger and it hasn't been productive, she says. And there are other times when I figured out how to use my anger as a fuel and as energy, how to act from a place of kindness and compassion, but not suppress my anger. Number 3, tell empowering stories. Suggested month, August. The space where we can have the greatest impact on our resilience is between a thing that happens and how we interpret and make sense of that thing, Aguilar says. That interpretation takes the form of a story we tell ourselves. So, for example, a student rolls her eyes at you. That's the thing that happens, she says. How you make sense of it and interpret that event is precisely the point where either your resilience can be drained or filled, because you can interpret her eye rolling as, this student doesn't respect me. Or you can interpret that event as, this is very typical behavior from 12-year-olds, and I'm going to move on to the next part of the lesson. In that moment, we can hone our ability to expand that space between what happens and how we respond and how we interpret it. We have so much more power than to cultivate our resilience. Point number 4, build community. Suggested month, September. If we develop habits that nurture relationships with our colleagues, students, parents, and administrators, we strengthen our resilience. There's actually medical research saying that isolation is more dangerous to your physical health than smoking, Aguilar says. Teaching can be such a lonely experience. And I think anything that we can do to begin cementing those connections will just help us so much when things get rough. The beginning of a school year is an ideal time to start, and by putting relationship building habits in place early, that community can be a source of strength all year long. Number 5, be here now. Suggested month, October. Learning how to be in the present moment without judging it can help us to experience acceptance. It helps us to have clear-headedness so that we can make choices in our responses. Developing habits of mindfulness, where we focus on what is happening right now without judgment, can help us to circumvent a triggered reaction to daily challenges and instead respond calmly and thoughtfully. Daily meditation or even brief moments of focusing on our breath can help us hit that pause button and bring ourselves to that place of calm. This takes us to point number 6. Take care of yourself. Suggested month, November. It's really hard to build community or to cultivate compassion or be a learner some of the other habits when you're just sick, when you're worn out, Aguilar says. So this month, she recommends focusing on the habits of physical self-care, digging into the reasons why teachers so often fall short in this area. I think people know what to do, she says. We know we should be eating more leafy greens and exercising more and so on. But why is it so hard? Uncovering those reasons can help with developing habits that work. Now we're going to pause for a quick word from our sponsor. Imagine having access to educational products, instructional videos, top-rated teacher podcasts, and articles worth over $1,000 for just pennies a day. Wouldn't that be awesome? And you know what the best part is? You get a free 7-day trial to go and check things out. So really, what do you have to lose? Go and check it out. Take a look around. Go to membership.teacherclassroomresources.com. I will be adding more products each and every month, and you're going to love being part of this teacher membership community. Okay, moving on to point number 7, focus on the bright spots. Suggested month, December. During this month, Aguilar guides teachers to practice giving more attention to what is working rather than what's not. Our brains have a negativity bias, she explains. So everything that is challenging, that is potentially a threat, appears really vividly and clearly to us because of the way our brains are wired. So one of the skills that we need to hone in is the ability to see all things that are going well or even just okay. In the classroom, for example, we can prompt ourselves to regularly notice students who are paying attention and on task, rather than giving all of our attention to the few students who aren't. By developing this habit, we increase our sense of empowerment, which in turn builds greater resilience. Number 8, cultivate compassion. Suggested month, January. When we practice compassionate thinking for others and ourselves, we become better equipped to handle difficult situations. Cultivating compassion, broadening our perspective on how we see a situation, helps us to empathize with others and to see the long view, to take ourselves out of the drama of the moment, Aguilar says. So when students misbehave, a colleague is short with us, or a parent challenges one of our decisions, being in the habit of viewing these situations through the lens of compassion can help you not take that behavior personally, which leads to smarter, less reactive decision making. And this brings us to point number 9, be a learner. Suggested month, February. Resilient people are curious, Aguilar says. Resilient people experience a challenge and turn around and say, wow, that was really hard. That pushed me to my limits. What can I learn from that? Just that question alone immediately propels you into a place of being able to build your resilience. So, this month, teachers are encouraged to reflect on who they are as learners, to better understand the stages of the learning process, and to practice seeing challenges as invitations to curiosity. Point 10. Play and create. Suggested month, March. One tool for building resilience that is easy to overlook is the habit of play. I think it's a human right to be creative, to create, enjoy, and appreciate art. Aguilar says, playing and creating can unlock inner resources for dealing with stress, for solving problems. It can help us see different things and find different approaches to tackle challenges. This month, which may hit right around spring break, teachers are encouraged to build regular periods of play and creation into their daily lives. Number 11, ride the waves of change. Suggested month, April. The end of the school year inevitably brings all kinds of changes. Some of these can completely throw us off track if we're not prepared for them. Aguilar recommends teachers spend this month looking at how we can harness our energies to manage those changes and also direct our energy to the places that we can make the biggest difference. Now, this practice includes slowing down, facing and dealing with fear, and mindfully evaluating situations to determine which responses will have the most impact. And this brings us to our last point, number 12, celebrate and appreciate. Suggested month, May. As the school year winds down, we have lots of opportunities to celebrate our own accomplishments and those of our students and colleagues. This month, teachers are encouraged to develop daily habits of gratitude and to carry those habits throughout the year. Even in the hardest moments, she says, if we can shift into a stance of appreciation, we can build our resilience. Well, my friend, we have come to the end of today's episode. Thank you for listening to the Teacher Rockstar podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hiles. And again, I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast today on how to become a more resilient teacher. When you get a moment, visit my new and improved blog and subscribe to my newsletter for the latest educational research, best practices, and unadvertised free bonuses. Go to blog.teacherclassroomresources.com. That's blog.teacherclassroomresources.com. And don't forget to subscribe to us at the Teacher Rockstar podcast. And if you'd like to support us, please feel free to share our podcast with others. Post about it on social media. Leave a rating and review. That would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again. We'll see you same time, same place next week. And remember, my friend, you got this.